Hi, welcome to Kindred Women. I have with me Kyndall Lane. She is a close friend of mine, and we've actually been friends since high school.
I think we've been friends longer than we haven't been
Yeah,
friends.
I know. It's so crazy. So why don't you go ahead and tell a little bit about yourself, who you are.
My name is Kyndall Lane. I was born and raised right here in Chesapeake. I am wife to a pretty cool dude. His name's Jordan. I have two babies, Tucker and Nixon. My life is a little crazy. They keep me on my toes for sure.
Yeah.
They're 2 and 4. I do hair, and live a pretty simple life.
Yeah,
I like it that way.
That's good. Yes. So you're going to talk a little bit today about being made in God's image and just kind of some of the journey that you've gone through with not feeling like you're, in God's image. So
Right.
Why don't you start with...
So I grew up my entire life a pastor's daughter, and so I kind of felt pretty defined by that. My parents did a really good job at just not making us feel the need to be perfect for everyone, like remembering that we're real people as well. So my whole life, I kind of felt guided in that way, and I was actually thinking on the way here when I kind of felt a little differently, and I think it was probably high school when it started for me, and I just felt like I knew who I was, but I didn't always match what everyone else was. And so I started to compare myself to them and kind of fall into different habits. And then you start to compare yourself a little bit more until you become somebody that you don't even really recognize anymore. And so fast forward to college, and I just went down a totally different path than who I knew I was growing up and who I was guided to be. And so I started to compare myself more and more and more, and so just got further and further and further from who God created me to be. And then you fast forward to getting married, and then you compare yourself to other wives. And then you become a mom, and you compare yourself to other moms. And it's like, you just lose sight of who you are entirely. And so it's not even like, it's not a fun place to know how to get out of at that point, because you've, from high school, started comparing to, am I skinny enough? Is my makeup done just the right way?
Is my right clothes?
I was going to say prom dresses. My sister's actually going through that right now. And so it's funny looking back, actually mentioning her at like all of that stuff. And I love her spirit because it's totally different than where I was at that age. But so you're comparing all of those things, and then you're trying to emulate those things and become who those people are. And then so already you go into a wedding. Am I skinny enough? Is my wedding dress enough? Just all of those replaying. And so then you're another level deeper, and then you're comparing yourself to other wives and all of those things, and you're another level deeper. And then you become a mom, and it's like, oh my gosh, another level deeper.
I feel like the mom was a little bit harder.
Those moms is rough.
Sometimes.
It can be silly. And so, and you're buried under so many levels of comparison that you don't even know where to start anymore, and how to get out of not even seeing who you are, but seeing who everybody else is instead.
So what kind of comparisons? I know you kind of just said, but
so I found myself like comparing, crazy things. It gets so taboo, but like bottle feeding, breastfeeding, like all of that stuff, which we won't even go down that rabbit hole because that gets all sorts of crazy. But clothes, I just ain't got time all the time to wash my hair and do my makeup, and so many moms look like they have it together. So like I think normal ones, like for women in general, but then I also found myself falling like silly stuff. Like I remember one time I saw this girl, and she always like she bakes things,
Uh-huh.
and she always has the ingredients at her
Yeah.
house. And like I was like,
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of flour.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
who cares about
Mhm,
flour?
mhm.
But I was so far
Yeah.
into comparison that I was like, I ain't got the right groceries.
Mhm,
Like,
mhm.
crazy
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And so you lose your contentment. Like, I don't even bake, okay? Jordan makes the cookies.
Yeah.
Very good ones. Good job, baby. But like, I don't even bake. I don't even care about that stuff.
Yeah.
And but yet you find yourself so far into it that like little things like that become this huge thing to where not only are you comparing yourself at that point, but you don't feel like you're even enough at that point.
Yeah.
And guess what? My kids don't care about no fresh baked cookies.
Exactly.
And like Jordan would probably like some fresh baked cookies.
Right, yeah.
But like
yeah.
not like but it's not as big of a deal as it becomes in your mind.
Yeah,
And so that was a huge one for me when I was thinking back on that. And I actually laughed at myself because I'm like, I don't even care.
Right, yeah.
But that
and I think that's how we know that it is such a lie, because we're focusing on things that we really wouldn't even normally care about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, who cares if I got chocolate chips
Right,
in my house?
exactly.
And
or that the certain kind of chocolate chip.
Yes.
You know, because then you can even go even a step further.
Exactly.
in that
There's
comparison
layers
game.
to it. Yeah. And so that one really stuck out. And then there was there's some girls that, and it's silly, but it's all, like, their pictures are better.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
And so, I just didn't feel like I had my life together as much as other people did.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I am a hot mess. I'm okay with that.
Right,
But we all are in our own
Mhm,
sense.
mhm.
And, but I lost sight of that.
Yeah. And I think the point that you made about the pictures and not being perfect on social media, how has social media kind of played a role in this too?
It is huge in it for me. Because like, it's just, the more you look at it, the more you realize it's kind of fake. And so, for me, it was hard for me to see that.
Yeah.
Like, people don't post pictures of their messy house.
Right.
I know I don't. Like, when I take a picture, I'm like,
yeah.
because there's stuff that I don't want you to see in my junk, basically. Like, I want you to see the clean corner of the disastrous room. And I know that's what other people do too. And so, like, for me, all you're seeing is that little tiny square.
Right, yeah.
And that's so cliche because I've heard it before, but when you're like into all that comparison, you can't even hear those words. Like, all you see is the perfection. And all you see is what people want you to see. And so you're like, well, dang, I don't have any of, like, my house ain't like, don't look like that. Like, I don't have chocolate chips at my house. But you don't see that the rest of the house is crazy.
Right, yeah.
That she had to run out at 6 o'clock this morning to go get those chocolate chips. Like, you don't know. You just automatically start to go and assume, and you put yourself down while you're raising them up. And for me, that's what social media became. Was that it was just a comparison game. And comparing to people I don't even know.
Yes. And see, that's where the trap, because you can literally scroll for hours, and then you're looking at some friend of yours, and then some friend of theirs, and then now you're looking at, you don't even know who they are.
I know.
And you're looking at their little lives, and you're like, man, that does look perfect. And you know, one thing I do want to point out with social media, because I do love it, but I also hate it sometimes because of this very reason, that you end up comparing to other people. But the thing that I try to portray, and sometimes I do take a step back and say, you know, and thinking about, like, why am I posting this, or what am I kind of trying to get out of doing this? But I like to remember for myself all of the good times. And I think there's a fine line between that and trying to make, like, everything looks perfect. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And trying to get those likes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and same, like, actually I'm on a social media hiatus right now. And it was because sometimes it just gets to be too much, and you find yourself falling back in that place, and it becomes this big thing instead of, I would like to remember this one day. So it just gets silly, and sometimes you have to get out of it to remember who you are.
So there's a quote that I've been reminded of, and I feel bad because I don't remember who it's by, but comparison is the thief of joy.
It's by an old president.
I was going to say, I think it's Thomas Jefferson.
I was going to say Ronald Reagan. No, I literally saw it twice this week.
Yeah, but how do you feel like that represents what we were talking about?
Oh, 100%. And it's funny because I thought about saying it because I saw it twice this week. And, but I'm just like, everybody knows that quote. Right. So it's funny that you brought it up. But it's so true. Yeah. Like, when you compare yourself, like I said, you start to put yourself down. And so you end up in this low spot instead of this high spot that God wants you to be in. Like, and he just reminded me of who I am in him. And so when you start to compare and you end up down here, joy isn't in the picture. Like, how can it be when you're, like, if I was comparing to you, like, I come in here, I'm like, oh, she got some cute decorations, my house ain't enough, like, all this stuff. Whereas, guess what? It is, because I love it. Like, but when you're in that moment, your contentment is gone. You're searching for more. Your joy is gone. I mean, there is just so many things where instead of coming into your home and enjoying it for what you've created it to be, you get in there and you're almost frantic to clean it up, to find something for that wall, and like all of those things. And so you don't even enjoy the spot that you're in, and you just want it creates this hole where you're wanting to fill it with something to be somebody that you're not. Yeah,
that's good. That is really good. So just with the whole social media thing real quick, and then we'll move on. Do you ever have to unfollow people?
I do. And actually, it's funny because in preparation for speaking with you, I realized that there are still some people on there that I need to unfollow, and it's people I don't know. Because it sounds bad, but like people I do know, I know y'all are a hot mess too. Right. Like, when I'm comparing things to you, like, if I get in that mode, I know you move that thing out the way. But I know that you're just as normal as I am. I know that we have the same struggles because of our relationship. And so when you have, like, I think that it's great, like, getting inspiration and all of those things. But if you find that you're comparing yourself to that person specifically, get rid of them. I have, and I'm going to when I get back on social media.
That's good.
Because they just take away joy more than they bring me joy. I'm about to what is that lady? Marie Kondo? My whole Instagram.
That's right. I've had to do that as well with people, and I truly do find that if you are, like you're saying, comparing yourself to the person in the little squares on their Instagram or their Facebook, and it makes you have an icky feeling, then it's time to let them go and figure out who you are. And then if you can come back to them and come from a different angle of, like you said, inspiration, then that's fine. But if you're just comparing when you see them, I mean, I have had to do that. And it did seem weird at first, but then I don't think about it anymore, you know?
Exactly.
So when you talk about being made in his image, what does that look like?
So that really, for me, has kind of defined trying to get away from comparison. It has become a strong, like a verse that I cling on to, because I was made to be who I am. I wasn't made to be like Amanda or like Sean, my mom, or like Taylor, or all the women that surround me. And so it has become a verse that has just when I'm struggling, like in comparison, that is what I go to, is that I was created in his image, and it gives me confidence just to be who I am. And actually, it's funny, a couple of weeks ago, when I went to Devoted, we go to a women's conference every year, and a guy spoke, and he said that just because God has delivered him from something doesn't mean that he doesn't wake up every day and have to have that battle. And so for me, like, comparison is something that I've struggled with since high school, but just because God has given me the tools doesn't mean that I'm not going to struggle with it still. I still have to utilize them. And so created in his image was one, fearfully and wonderfully made. And one that I just love is that he knows the hairs on your head. And so, like, just every little thing about who you are, God knows. And not just does he know, but he made you to be that. And so those three verses, and whatever they could be for you, you just have to utilize them. And so for me, that's become what I've clung to. In days that I feel like I'm having that weight put back on me, I say, no, I'm created to be exactly who I am. And so that has become just a strong tower for me to hold on to.
So when you are kind of in a comparison phase, I know those are 3 verses that you gave. So is there a prayer that you kind of pray, or, to kind of get you out of that funk?
Sure, yeah. Actually, I like tangible things. I actually just ordered a bracelet. It will be here later today.
You're like, man, I want to bring that bracelet.
I actually ordered it before you even asked me to speak. But it literally says in his image on it. I got it made. And so just looking down and where but yes, I do pray just when I'm not feeling enough. Because ultimately that's where you land when you're comparing, is not feeling like you're enough. And so I do pray that God give me my confidence, give me the reminder that I am who you say I am, and that I don't have to try to be more, that you created me to be who I am, and help me to walk confidently in that.
That's good. As some of you might know, I'm an identical twin, and I can tell you, I mean, the comparison game is super strong. Just with that factor. I've literally been compared to someone else
your whole
my entire life. So comparison has definitely been something that I've kind of gone back and forth with, and I think the one verse that I completely and wholeheartedly agree with is you are fearfully and wonderfully made, because that, and I remembered my mom, and I've said this on even different interviews, that is just something that has stuck with me growing up. And I remember even times being like, okay, Mom, like, I get it, but seriously, it is so true. And I'm so thankful that she would say that to me. I mean, it was a reminder all throughout the years. She would say, you are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Well, and I think that's awesome too, because that voice is louder than a different voice. And so when you have that constant reminder and you use it as your anthem instead of all those other voices taking over and you finding yourself going lower and throw all those layers, it's something that grounds you. And so it's a voice of reason that is louder than everything else. And so even when it gets redundant and like, come on, Mary, but like you need that sometimes. So,
and I think that it's good to know that this isn't something that you're never going to struggle with again.
Right.
Yeah,
I loved going back to Devoted. There an illustration that his name is Sai that he used, because I feel like it can you get in. He used a circle. You know what I do. And so he said, like, if the top point you feel like you're always coming back to it, it's not a circle. You're growing every time you come back. So it's actually a spiral upwards.
Yep.
And so even though you have that point of commonality and that thing that you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going through this again, you're actually growing every single time. And so it helped me feel like, okay, we're doing this again.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm actually moving upwards. And even though I'm still struggling with it, it doesn't mean that I have to get stuck there.
Yeah. And just like what you're saying, when you're going upwards in that circle, if you come back to that comparison game, you've learned from your past. I mean, so originally what I have thought to, and we use social media as an example just because it is such a huge piece.
Right.
But with deleting someone's account or deleting someone, unfollowing someone that's a I don't know, a clothes designer or something, that then if I wouldn't have even thought to have unfollowed them at one point. It would have just been like, well, I'm just going to keep comparing myself to her.
Yeah.
Instead of now, I have control. I'm taking control over that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to compare, and I'm going to be content with what God has given me and who God has placed inside of me.
Right.
Because it is true, we are made in His image. So when we do find ourselves kind of not in tune, like we've talked about with our self-worth and our self-image and who God has called us to be, what is a way that we should kind of get out of that?
Okay. I think that you have to look in yourself. And I think that's where it starts.
Yeah.
I think that you can't live in that spot. Like, you have to find what voice can be louder than the rest for you. And if that is taking a hiatus from social media, if that is calling a friend and telling them that you're struggling, whatever it may be, you can't live there.
Yeah.
And it's so easy. Like, there's so many women that are strong out there right now. Rachel Hollis is a huge example.
Yeah.
She's a feel-good. Like, when you get done listening or reading or whatever to her book or her podcast or whatever, you're like, heck yeah. Like, we can do this. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't want this to become. Like, so many women are going to listen to this.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to leave this moment and be like, heck yeah, I got this.
Yeah.
And then in 3 days,
you're back there.
You're exactly where you started. And so you've got, for me, like, it's in His image. For you, fearfully, wonderfully made. Whatever, even if it's not a Bible verse, like, which, I mean, I think, obviously, knowing who you are in God, that makes a huge difference. So for me, it has always been a Bible verse for whatever season of my life. But even if it is a Rachel Hollis quote, or who else has a book? Michelle Obama, or like whatever. Like, find something that speaks louder in your brain than everything else. Don't get stuck where you're at, because it's so easy to just be like, well, I like what they have to say. I don't care if I compare. Like, you almost start making excuses. No, you've got to take power. You've got to take control of that space in your brain, in your life, and whatever that may be. You've got to start getting rid of things to help yourself instead of making excuses.
Yeah, and looking within truly is where it's going to be, and asking the Holy Spirit to even reveal to you things that are amiss. You know, God, show me where I am comparing in my life. Show me where I'm not content in my life. And I do think rest is one of those things where you truly will find peace. And if you're busy and you're on the go and you're doing, you're not going to feel enough, and you're not going to feel worthy, and you're not going to feel like you're in His image, because you're chasing and constantly going after this and that. So rest, I think, and even a social media rest, it sounds silly, but no, like, if you need to just get away from everyone, the world, and just be with your friends, you know, the ones that are in your state or whatever, you know, talking to them face to face, sometimes that's necessary to really. I mean, even I feel like if you're telling them some of what you're going through, I think it's an amazing thing knowing that we're not alone. I mean, even us, like, we've never really had this conversation, and we've been friends since we were in high school, you know. So, but we both have gone through it, and I think telling your friends, this is what I'm going through, let's pray together, you know, and actually praying, not just saying, hey, I'll pray for you right now, you know, let's pray together, and we'll talk, and we'll pray through this, and that God truly will give you contentment. So what would you say is kind of the challenge for the women listening?
One, look within. I mean, I think that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think to be really honest with yourself. I think a lot of times we make excuses. We start to say, well, and going back to social media, because that has played a huge part in my comparison game, life, whatever. But we start to make excuses. Like, instead of, you'll go and you'll say, well, I'm going to follow them. And you're like, oh, but I really like their stuff, and that did inspire me, and I did get my kids shoes from that post, like, and so you start to make excuses instead of just saying, no, enough is enough. I've got to take control of this part of my life again, and because you get stuck, and so look within, don't make excuses, and be confident in who you are.
Amen. Good.
And just cling to what God has given to you. I think when women start to compare, I think it's something we all struggle with, if we're being honest.
I do too.
And I think that God gives you the tools, and you just have to access them. You have to utilize what He has given to you. And so don't fall into a rut. Stand up, take power, and be confident in who God has created you to be.
That's good. I love that. Thank you. So is that, you got anything else to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, this was good. So if you're feeling like you're struggling in this area, you know, God has made you in His image, and you are beautiful and you are wonderfully made, just as Kyndall has talked about. So we just thank you so much for watching, and we will see you again next time.
Bye.